no. Yeah, I know.
There's one thing I hate, and it's public speaking. This is like my worst nightmare. If you knew me, this is like one of the worst things I don't like to do. But hey ho, I do crack on with it. But yeah, sometimes I might digress. So it's good that it's there and getting recorded. You can cut that out when I start going off on a tangent.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, perfect. All right, cool. We'll crack on.
Okay, mate.
Welcome to the Grails and Tales podcast, episode number 3. Today we're delighted to be joined by one of the UK's largest vintage wholesalers, Ricardo Seaton. Ricardo, thanks so much for coming on. How's things?
No worries. Things are great. Things are great in the considering in the current climate.
Yeah. It's been a bit of a strange one.
Isn't it just?
It's been fun though. I mean, for us, like over the past, we started the podcast, and over the past few months, been speaking to loads of different retailers, really kind of like understanding kind of, what we do. So obviously kind of retail to consumer. So it's been really good to actually try and get yourself on a wholesaler to actually then start to bridge in the gaps of, I guess, what we don't see. So you've obviously been in the game for a while. Is it something like 15 years? Or
15 years? Yeah, 15 years doing wholesale. I've been doing vintage from coming into 16 years now. We basically, but it was a little bit longer than that. When I say we, it's me and my wife, because obviously we invested in the Vintage Wholesale Company together with our funds. Before that, we was retail. So there was a company called Too Much Vintage. And that did really well back in the day. So that would have been about 18 years ago, 20 years ago, before we'd come into the wholesale side of things. And things was good then. There was no recessions, there was no pandemics. The power of the pound was like €2 for a pound. Nice. So things was good. Importing was easy. So basically, how I started up with vintage was going into wholesaling was on the retail level with Too Much Vintage. Now, with the power of the pound, it was really good to just invest your money straight back in. Your profits was brilliant, and I had a little van, hopped on the ferries, which we were in Hull. So I just literally got in my little transit van, popped across there every week, just filled it up with stock, brought it back. I managed to get like the deal, so it only cost like 28 quid to get on the ferry there and back. So it was absolutely, the profits and everything was going well. Stock was piling up. And then as time went on, I kind of started looking at the wholesale side of things, and there was a gap in that market. And there was customers asking for certain categories, what I saw across there whilst I was buying at the different rag yards and stuff. And then I started doing little deals here and there with on the wholesale side, collecting stock for them, catering some orders for them. And then all of a sudden it kind of organically grew into like, wait a minute, this is kind of getting some legs here. So if I can tie down these rag yards and I can get some kind of commitment from them and some kind of business relationship with them, I can build on that. So I developed that over the years, and then as we came into as we started winding down so much vintage, we realized that at that time as well, we actually went through a recession as well. So that was a challenging thing for myself, because as we went through that recession, I was doing a transition over to the Vintage Wholesale Company, and at that point, the euro dropped to £1 a euro. So I had to reevaluate quickly of like, what am I going to do about it? So I went back into Europe, and I went to the States and renegotiated prices to reflect the pound to how it was. And I managed to tie it all down, but the commitment of the investment of the stock that they wanted me to take was massive. So, but I said yes, and I was like, yeah, I can do that. Yeah.
Like everyone does.
Got back on the ferry with the missus, and we both was like, well, where are we going to find like 65 grand to invest in? So I wrote a business plan. I applied to Barclays business, and they supported me. We maxed out our credit cards. And then we also, there's a local authority called Sirius. Now they're linked with BP, and they've got, they're still going now, and they help small businesses to launch as well. So I wrote a business plan with that, and I managed to get all that funding as well as maxing out the credit cards, and we just pumped it in, and literally that first shipment came across, and it just went from there, and it just built strength from strength in going into the wholesale side, and here we are now again in a challenging year.
And you mentioned so for people probably who don't know, you kind of said you started to get the relationship with rag yards.
Yeah.
How do you define what a rag yard is? Because people always ask me when I'm just talking about the rag yard.
So yeah,
it's a common question.
So yeah, a rag yard. It's kind of like, how do you define second-hand clothes to vintage clothes, isn't it? It's when someone comes up to you and says, "Oh, so what do you do?" I sell vintage clothing, and at 99% of the time the response is, "Oh, second-hand then, second-hand." And in a sense, it all is that. It is rags, and it is second-hand, and it is vintage, but it all falls under that one umbrella. But ultimately, vintage is the cream of the rags. So how it starts, the process is the wonderful donations that you get off the public, and it starts at the charity shops. I'll use the charity shops for a scenario. It does go other places, but it does start at the charitable donations from the public, and they get too much of it. They can't process it in the back of their offices, and then the rag yards step in and say, "Okay, we'll have your bags for 50p a bag, and we'll clear out your full stock room, but don't open the bags." So they say, "Yeah, every week come to us, or every month come to us. You can take our full stock room, and then all of that, it's a nice big chunk to go into the charity pot, and then they're still processing bags that they're able to get through." So that's step one. And step two, the rag yards take it to these rag yards, and then they open up these bags, and there's numerous items in there. You'll have toys, you'll have homeware, you'll have, I don't know, maybe sanitary waste, you'll have, but then you'll have modern clothes that goes out to the Eastern European, you'll have fur that might go up to the Ukraine and Russia, and you'll have cotton that'll get re-yarned and re-dyed and recycled, and then you have vintage. Now, this is where we step in, and we educate these rag yards about what vintage is. And look, if Levi's jacket or Levi pair of jeans come through, put it in that pile. So whilst these rag yards they're making their money out of all of these other items, but then they know that this is a premium item, and they'll be selling this at about £2 per kilo. Now that's not much, but to them, what they're processing, it's going to be a lot. So, but you have to take like containers of it. You had to take a certain amount of it, and then that goes to another system where it gets recategorized, and then gets rebaled, resanitized, and then it comes across, and then it gets redistributed into the retail industry.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's amazing hearing you talk about it, obviously, and getting this like full insight into the kind of process behind it. I mean, so the way you speak about it, I mean, you kind of make it almost sound a little bit easy in the sense of building those relationships. What's it actually like? What's it actually like to just approach a rag yard, whether it's someone in Europe or perhaps wider across different continents? How do you kind of start that conversation?
It kind of, when, to be honest, right at the beginning, 15 years ago, there was a lot of doors that get slammed, and there's a lot they are very protective of who comes into the yards and who are you, and you get vetted a lot as well. And why should we be supplying you? Are you a sustainable business? Are you going to be a good reputable business? And all of those questions do come about. Back in, I'd say for me, back 15 years ago, though, it was just after being scrutinised, I'd say, they basically just said, "Look, we're not looking to take on any other suppliers, but we'll give you a go." So it must have just been a character thing for me, the way I presented myself, maybe the way I came across, and maybe a bit of luck. The doors you open, are opportunities out there. So I just kept opening the doors, and it came about.
Yeah. So I guess for a lot of other maybe potential wholesalers, who are listening to this, maybe like, is the process probably different now than it was 15 years ago? Like, have the rag yards already got the relationships, or?
They've got the relationships, but with every, I don't want to set myself up here, do I? I don't want anybody to go, all right, I'm off out to the rag yard.
Yeah.
So with every rag yard, there's with every rag yard that's shutting down, there's always one that's going to be opening. So there is hundreds of thousands of rag yards out there, but there's a massive element of risk of what grade you're going to get, what quality you're going to get. Are they just going to show you the prize of what they can do for you and then ship a load of stock that's not good? So there's that element of risk to do. And I think back in 15 years ago, it wasn't as risky. But now there is a massive element of actually getting that rag within that vintage mix and literally ending up with a crap deal, basically.
Yeah, because I guess now, 15 years ago, vintage was maybe kind of a thing that people wore to step away from the norm, whereas now today, people are more educated on the sustainability side of things. They're more educated in, I guess, the look that people are now going for with vintage. And now are you seeing it just way more competitive? Everyone's, trying to get particular pieces, or how's that changed over the past 15 years?
Like you said, before 15 years ago, vintage was kind of a trend where brands wasn't a thing. It was kind of a trend setter rather than a trend follower. So kind of people kind of identifying themselves by just being quirky or being unique. And I think over the years, that is basically always going to be a pattern. Like you had your mods, and you have your grunge, and you always have that your hip hop style, and you always have all those kind of fashion kind of sectors of what people follow the trends of. But the how it stands now, there's this massive massive sportswear boom that's just happened, and people want brands, and it's brands that are actually getting pumped out there. And it not only is it you've got businesses that have really built up their business on the core of the fashion kind of the fashion bubbles, but then you've got this other side where people just aren't really that educated on it enough, and it's very challenging to kind of explain to them that they can't just come and take 100 spell out sports sweats and then that's their business model. They've got to build it as a passion about what they envisage, what their niche is, and who they have to identify themselves before they actually express their business ideas, rather than just go, oh, I saw that on The Only Way is Essex, or I saw that on whatever's on mainstream. I'm gonna build a business on that. So that is the most challenging thing at the moment, is that it's not that easy just to go, right, I'll take that and I'll make a ton of money off that one brand, because it'll just keep getting produced. Because like I just said, it's not a manufactured product. It's a one-off piece. It's a recycled product. We're not going to see this again, and we can't just say, right, I'll put in an order of 20,000 units of them, because I know if it was that easy, I'd be retired.
It's interesting you say that, because I mean that comes right from the retail and works backwards. Like, where people ask us the whole time, have you got this? Or they'll send us something saying, I can't find this piece on your website, and you try and explain that it's one of one, and you have that whole conversation, and that's just from a retail perspective. So from your point, I mean, does it kind of go back even further back to the rag houses? Like, are they monitoring levels of branded vintage, or is there kind of is there sort of like a global stock check? I know that sounds ridiculous.
There was one supplier, two suppliers that are very good at what they do, and their stock is beyond. But what they like to do is they have the same view of, if we was to give it all, it'd all run out within 5 years. We could do it, but it'd all run out. So they limit the supply as well. So they limit the supply to ensure that it's sustainable for the next 25 years. So they've got stock to cover it for the next 25 years at the moment. Yeah. So it's good enough it will go on for another 25 years guaranteed, unless something really happens dramatically, like, I don't know, factories actually to get wipes off the planet of the earth and stuff like that. Like Nike can't produce anything anymore, or Champion can't, or anything like that. But they've got that because they know in 10 years' time what's getting manufactured now in the system now in the sportswear, Nike, Fila, Reebok, everything that they've repatterned, redone the vintage original will go in the system 10 years' time. And they're staggering, so they're controlling it all. So they do have stock takes and they do have a system, and it is a very smart system. They could supply it, but it would only last a short member, and it would drought the industry. So that is their kind of stock take system, really.
Just to that kind of point, I mean, obviously we've seen like the prices in terms of vintage, I'm sure from your side as well, like just going up and up the last 18 months to 2 years. Are we looking at that continuing as the kind of supply of the core kind of 80s, 90s, early 2000s? Are we going to see those vintage items start to become more valuable than even the kind of new? Because now vintage is a slightly cheaper alternative. You can buy a bag now for £300-400 from a vintage retailer, but cost price you might have a zero on the end of that. Is the balance going to start to shift where vintage becomes even more expensive?
I'm not, to be honest. I would hope not. I would hope, and I think it does come down to the responsibility of a wholesaler to not keep knocking it up, and to make sure that it's controlled and it's vetted and passing on the same kind of morals of what the rag yards do to me, the vets, to ensure that we were supplying the right people, the right people with the right view and the right ethics, and they're going to keep that price margin, and that there's not going to be this price war where it kind of saturates the market, and then all of a sudden you see these prices that are just going off the scale, that are just not really viable for the industry, really. So I would hope that it wouldn't. And I have seen this sports back in the 1995. This sports boom happened then. Before that, I couldn't sell sports sweaters. Honestly, I had endless amounts of sports sweaters. Nobody wanted them. I was cutting them up and reworking them into dress skirts with the big spell outs in the front and 2 pockets. But but then we had a boom, and I saw it. I've seen this happen once before, and that lasted for about 5-6 years. And then it went on to kind of a denim, grunge, hip hop kind of fashion, which I'm seeing that kind of shift a little bit. We're currently supplying a lot of people are asking for a lot of like FUBU and basketball shorts and baggy stuff now. And I think that I do actually think it might taper off this sports kind of fashion, and at least give it some time to recover for that. But
that's been the hardest thing, because vintage stores like it was you was all about finding that one random piece that you don't know why it's worth so much, because you pick it up and you're just like, whoa, what an incredible piece. Obviously you get so much of that within sports, but you also get it with loads of kind of either unbranded pieces or t-shirts. Whereas I guess the slight issue that's occurred is in the past 18 months people have seen a Nike sweatshirt selling for £100. So then almost people have come into the industry from the wrong way, the wrong mindset, rather than saying, I think we've got enough clothes on the planet that we don't need to wear, any, fast fashion brands. I love finding these random one-off pieces. So it's kind of that balancing act, isn't it? You want to get the right people with the right ethics in there, like you said.
And I think that's that for our challenge. And again, I think it's you like yourselves to go to the consumer with as well, I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
100%. And I think it's just for us, it's just trying to educate people on, on the trends and, the reason why we're shopping vintage, and everything about that. I mean, one thing that we're seeing a lot more of is kind of the whole, rework pieces coming in now, really prominent over the past 12 months. You mentioned you were cutting up, things and making skirts in 1995.
Yeah.
Yeah. So was reworking so big back then? It feels like it's only just become bigger now.
Yeah.
No, yeah. Back then, again, reworking was still going on. Still trying to be creative. People were still asking for. I'm trying to think who was. I think it was Selfridges who was doing them for. Selfridges wanted to do a run of Levi cut down denim shorts. Just that's how simple it was. And I think it was before the boom of the denim short, Levi 501 denim shorts, and then they wanted a trial run of the sports as well. But yeah, we was doing them for Selfridges. But yeah, it was still a big thing back then to rework the clothes, because obviously if we can rework our grade C jeans, sell them for £6, it's better than just sat there on rags. So yeah, that helps us. And the sports sweats weren't moving, so I thought I'll chop them up anyway.
That could have been your retirement fund now.
Absolute gold. I mean, we're seeing now a couple of wholesalers we work with, like we rework all our stuff in-house with our designer, but we're seeing now there's a bit of an influx of actual wholesale rework coming in, whether that's more from the Asian markets. Is that something which you come across, or is that anything which you're doing? Or
yeah, that's something we've come across. We're in talks with a few big high streets at the moment, but I've had experience with the high street, and you really have to kind of educate them a little bit about it, because it can become detrimental to your business. In respect of, I'll do one scenario of, we worked with ASOS, and they wanted Levi jeans tapering, but then all of a sudden they wanted certain sizes, then they wanted certain shades, and the goalposts started getting moved, and because it was great being associated and doing that, all of a sudden we were spending so much time and work onto that, and then we was liable for 30 days and returns, and there was a lot of it. And for me, before I even step into doing a wholesale rework, I really need to basically explain to them that these are my terms, and this is how it's going to have to be, or we can't work with you. And some of them respect it, and some of them go away and go elsewhere. But then I think sometimes they'll come back and say, okay, well, let's see some of your samples and we'll go from there. But at the moment, I'm just focusing on wholesale vintage, making sure that we'll come out, all of my customers are looked after, and we'll come out of this pandemic. That's my main focus, getting things going. And for rework, I wouldn't see that happening for a good 1 or 2 years, even if I did step into that again.
Yeah. And have you tried to just stay, I'd say almost like business to consumer, rather than dealing with the high street? Have you found them just a lot more challenging, although they can probably supply larger amounts of orders and stuff?
Yeah. I've definitely avoided that, because again, it's just the like I said, the demand of what they want. They don't understand. They don't understand the kind of how the production works when it comes into the warehouse. So yeah, I kind of keep well out of the way of that.
I guess it's an interesting one, because it's kind of, should the high street, have really, any place in vintage? Will they slowly get taken over by vintage companies? It's going to be an interesting, I guess, 15 years. You just got to look at, Topshop, dying on the high street. Will we then see your customers coming up on the, on the high street, or maybe the online high street?
Yeah, exactly. I think the biggest shock was the Topshop, the Arcadia Group folding from the high street. And I remember I was down in London. I might be digressing a little bit, but I'm just going off about if the high street is dying. I don't think the high street is dying, but I do think that the creativity of people will come out more, which might reignite the high street. People might, they've been locked up, they're doing things. There's a number of people that I've spoken to that have lost their jobs, and some have set up a chicken farm factory. One set up a candle wax business, and these might develop back onto the high street, shopping local again, doing candle waxes and selling eggs at the local store, the local fruit store. But I do think it was a big shock to see Topshop to go under. But I don't think that the high street's dead as yet. I think the creativity of people start to flow, and I'd hope that that'd reignite the independence and the high street once again, I think.
Yeah, definitely. It's interesting to say. I think one thing which we do know about like fashion in terms of moving forward the next 20, 50 years or so, sustainability is going to be such a huge part of that. And we're seeing now, you know, like really well-known brands, you know, like H&M looking at making things more circular by, if not kind of selling vintage, but using the old fabrics from, you know, garments that have been discarded and kind of reworking it that way. I mean, and that's been such a massive part of why, you know, the vintage industry's boomed recently. Do you kind of ever feel like before that vintage has really boomed the last 2 or 3 years, do you feel like it was an industry that was like simmering, much like sustainable fashion is now? Or
I think it was it wasn't exactly simmering. It was comfortable, I'd say. It was nice. I think it's a bit more vicious now. In respects to that everybody wants a piece of it, you know, because there's the sustainability. You've got these high streets going, right, we want to jump on this sustainability. And I'm like, hang about, we've been around here for like years now. Yeah. And now you want to jump on this. Like, let's back off, you know. So it's I think it was simmering, but I think it's bubbling. Like, you know, it's a bit more vicious. Like people just, they expect it and they expect it now, and they want a piece of it and they want a piece of it now. And, you know, they haven't been patient. You haven't really seen the kind of the efforts what people have put in, and the slogging of going out and grading the stock, seeing the stock hand, bringing that back and portraying it and taking it out and putting it on to your consumers and doing all of the legwork. They haven't seen that. They just know that the mindset of everybody's moving into the sustainable bracket, and they're going, right, what can we do? We'll move into vintage. So yeah, it's a bit upsetting, but yeah, it's just don't like it.
I remember it must have been like 4 or 5 years when kind of came down to visit you, like one of the first wholesalers I'd ever seen. And it was, you know, we were looking back on like our old photos when we started out. And it seemed like it was just like pretty relaxing times. Like there was always loads of stock there, you know, sweaters are just everywhere. Whereas, you know, now it's just a completely different minefield, isn't it? And I guess it is. People don't understand the hard work that has to go into actually sourcing these. And then you mentioned actually the hard work that the rag yards go to actually preserving, you know, all of this flow. It's not as easy as just click your fingers and you've got, you know.
Yeah, just add it to a cart and it'll come to my doorstep.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's also like, you know, definitely from our perspective, started to see what we've seen in the past 12 months, loads of fakes start to flood the market as people now try and copy what an old cool, you know, bootleg Nike sweater looks like. I mean, have you seen kind of that from your side? Because you probably have a larger view on kind of that supply side of things.
Yeah, we've seen that. And it's funny. Where did bootleg ever come from? Who created that word? Bootleg.
We love a bootleg sometimes. Yeah.
Sell it bootleg. It's fine. I've had meetings about it, and because I go and see my suppliers usually around 10 times a year, and I do a few trips between them all. But when we are there, we're discussing trends, we're discussing what's starting to react, because they're international. They will supply like Japan, or they'll supply Australia, or they'll supply a certain other country. So they'll discuss trends that are coming through in the other countries, and they might advise you, like, look, denim dungarees are coming hot now in Europe. You might want to start stockpiling them. So we'll discuss trends, but also what's always on the agenda is the fake and the bootleg items. So, and it's an element that will get through the system, but the provisions that are always getting put in place are always starting from the beginning, from the rag yards, and it goes through to their systems and then through to us. And then obviously you guys see that product. We've always worked on, for the last 15 years, we've always worked on a 5 to 8% wastage. And I think we're still around that 5 to 8% wastage. And I see that because we're not stockpiling. We never stockpile. We've never got a load of stock that we need to clear out. We're always rotating the stock. we're always saying then it goes from the hand pick to the kilo, from the kilo, and it goes out. Any counterfeit products that we get, or unfortunately land with our customers, come straight back to us. We give a refund and we destroy it. So that's basically what we do, and the full system around that bootleg scenario is.
Yeah, that's interesting to say that. It's funny to hear you kind of meeting to like discuss trends and everything. Obviously, I mean, Charlie and I do that as well in terms of thinking, what's going to be popular moving forward in the next 6 months. I mean, is there anything from your side where you think, oh, maybe this has got unfulfilled potential in the vintage area? Obviously, you see all sorts of random stuff like military becomes into fashion. Obviously, now sportswear, designer wear. Is there anything you look at and think, that's untapped? That could be an area which starts to.
That you've spoken about,
There is. There's a number of times I've imported stuff, and it's just not touched. It's not being touched, and it'll sit there for maybe 2-3 picks, but then all of a sudden it booms, and then everyone goes, right, I want it. Can you have more of it? Like, I wish you just. But yeah, it's a risk element when I do that, but. I always try and get samples of it, put it in the warehouse. I'm trying to think of the products that I've put in there recently, and that's just not moved, but I know that it will come through. It'll pop up later on what that is. But I think recently, over the last year, was the Japanese fashion I saw that's been coming through quite a lot. Kind of the carpenter trousers, the workwear stuff, as well as the Carhartt jackets that fall in line with that. The Trollman hat and stuff like that, and I think that's slowly coming through. And it's good to see that, because it is a lot of unbranded stuff, like your French worker jackets, your overalls and stuff like that. So I think that will get a little bit more momentum as times go on.
It's interesting as well with Japan. I mean, it seems to kind of be almost like a trendsetter, and you see it ripple across the rest of the world, and then people in the UK think they're kind of making waves, in terms of what they're wearing. But it's incredible. I mean, from your perspective,
if it's not fashion, it's a virus.
yeah, exactly. It's so true. I mean, it's very interesting to kind of look at it in that scarcity angle. Obviously, like streetwear is so like based around scarcity. You have really small 100-item collection drops, which is partly, you then take that into the vintage kind of industry, and you've literally got one of one stuff, or you don't even know there's 100 of them to sell. Is it something which you find really difficult? Like, how do you keep your customers happy in that kind of environment? Like, they're obviously coming to you saying that they all want to leave having spent 10 grand and set themselves up for the next 6 months, but how do you kind of manage that and keep them happy? It must be quite a tough.
It is, and it's a constant like juggling act, spinning plates. Is because there's a number of elements, because you don't really want to come like untrusting to your customers. Like, everybody wants to be in on the first day, and we've got to respect like the customers that are booked in that first day. But we are importing. Like, the next load will be 150 bales. Now, when we're on the floor, there's not 150 bales out. There's always about 60 to 70, and we've got another half in the container. But they don't see that's what's happening. Is that we have got a system in place there. We'll have week one, and once week one's done, we'll pull out the bales, and then we'll refreshen it, and then we'll have week two, and then week three, and it's really hard to kind of say that within a 2-minute conversation of, the delivery's coming in, do you want to be booked in? And it's like, first day please, and like, it's full out. Oh, well, why is it full out? I'm going to miss out on everything. I'm like, nobody, what do you want? I'll try and save something. And it's just really hard it is a constant battle. But like the way I mentioned about limiting the supply to the demand of the supplies to the market, is kind of what I try to do within the warehouse, is try and limit the supply to the market that's there that week, so to say, and then try and just keep churning that over, which will last 4 to 6 weeks, and then try and do the system again. But when I book in again, I'll try and rejig all of the bookings. So who was in like end of the week might come in middle of the week, who was in on the second day, will come in on the first day, and mix it all up again. So there's never any pattern that we call up a certain category and go, right, we'll get these in on this day and this, because we know that they'll spend big and stuff like that. And people do say that, oh, if you get me in first day, I've got this budget. And I've seen it a handful, time after time. They'll come in and they've got £1,000 budget in their head. So, and that's it. They'll always spend that, and you'll always see that and they'll run out of time as well, because there's just too much to go through. And if they don't get it on that one day, they think it's gone, but it's not. It's not gone. If they actually got that placebo away from themselves. There's been some vintage, like there was a £10,000 dress that one girl found. It was a 1960s, I forgot what it was named, but it was an original high-end Twiggy one or something like that, worth £10,000, but it was missing the belt. And it'd been the dresses had been sat there for well over 6 weeks, but nobody wanted to touch them because they thought after week 3 they'd been done. But this one girl, she went through every single one, and then she got the grail from that.
Yeah, that's the game of digging, isn't it? That's why you go hand picking. You're never going to walk in and be out in half an hour with £5,000 spent and some of the best items. It's I mean, those bales that you have, I mean, it's a serious workout getting all the clothes back.
It is a workout. That's why I've got that in the background. I need some exercise to keep fit to work through them.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, so in terms of your supply and that kind of side of it, I mean, obviously you're so well established in terms of your position within the UK, like you have been kind of ever since even we started, and well before that. Do you ever look at it and think, I'd like to add more suppliers in? Like, how do you are you constantly reviewing that side of it? Do you ever go and visit different countries or? To
be honest, the amount of suppliers that have contacted me, and I don't know how they've got my number, but saying that we want to supply you and we want to do work with you, it is a really risky game who you bring on board, because it's a really the grading system what we've got set up with our suppliers at the moment is really unique in sense that it's not mixed, it's all categorized, it's all in bales, we get a good amount of that one category, and the other suppliers, they want to send it mixed. You don't know the grade. By the time you've graded the grade, you realise that you've got a lot of crap, and that could be 3-4 weeks down the line, and then your returns is non-existent. So you're left with all of that, and it's just about professionalism. And the people that I'm with now, have been for the last 14 years of being with them, have been like the spot on. We've got it right. We've got the systems right. The price brackets are right. Going to you guys is right. Everyone's happy with those prices, and everybody's happy. So at the moment, there's no need for me to introduce more, except it would be for me to not grow, because I can grow more with the current suppliers. But then it would take, I would take my eye off something else. What I'm doing now is that I've got the right customer base, I've got the right business model, I've got the right stock. I don't really need to import more stock that could really upset that full balance, really. So there is going back to the question, do we venture? I ask them the questions, can they do this, can they do that? And yet they outright say, no, we can't come to those prices, and we can't grade it into those categories. And I say, well, listen, if you want me to supply my customers, I can't be importing at 15 quid a kilo graded, because I can't pass that on to you guys. You can't pass it on to the consumer. It doesn't make sense. So unless they go away from it, and 2 of them are actually trying to adapt it at the moment, and until they put those processes in place, then it'll come through. So yeah, watch your space. We are currently talking to 2 other ones, and I'm waiting to get an answer from the one in Europe, who should be in a couple of weeks' time. But he's happy with grading it. He's happy with the categories that I've said. He's happy with the prices. So no prices will change at my end. So yeah, watch your space with that one.
That's the important thing from you being specific on this is what I need. These are the prices, because, you know, maybe other people wanting to enter into the wholesale game might just be like, yeah, great. You know, I'll take whatever you can give me. And then actually you then start to see long-term effects are going to be negative for the whole industry, poor grading, more fakes coming through, the price going up.
And I think currently that's what you are seeing in the current climate. You are seeing a lot of that wholesale flood in the market with this vintage products, but all of that vetting hasn't been put in place beforehand to protect the market, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's interesting to hear you say that. I mean, just obviously our podcast is called Grails and Tales. We've had some fantastic tales. Charlie and I have also picked up some seriously mad grails thanks to you. We've also, I mean, we've been in that unbelievable office of yours and seen some of those insane footy shirts, which are just remarkable. If anyone gets to visit Ricardo, take a look in there. It is a madness. We'd love to know what your grail is. Have you found it? Are you looking for it?
So going off football shirts, I've got a Crespo match worn AC Milan football shirt. That's actually his shirt that he wore for that match. So that's up there. And I only found this out the other day because you sent over a few questions beforehand, and I was just thinking, and I actually was clearing out my sock drawer. This is how bad it is, and it was there, and I checked it up. But I've been playing football training in it for the last 2 years. So I've been playing football in Crespo's football shirt for the last 2 years. So that was something that I had to give you the experience of, because that's up there. But I must say, it was baseball caps. And do you remember Connor Coggill, the boxer? Yeah. So Connor come running in the office with a Chicago Bulls cap. And I've looked, and it was a signature on it. And then after getting it verified, it was a match issued NBA basketball cap, and it was signed by Michael Jordan. So that's the top one for me for the way. And after seeing the documentary and everything like that, I think I'll put that up there with the top one.
Put it in a box.
I have done. It's the all-time sports unbelievable.
Doesn't get any better than that.
It doesn't.
Signed by the man himself as well.
Incredible that was in Chicago, and now it's ended up in the office.
Exactly.
What a journey! I'm sure Michael will be proud.
Yeah.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks so much. Super insightful for me. I imagine everyone else as well. But yeah, look forward to seeing you in person soon.
Yeah, 2 weeks time, guys. We'll see you soon.
Thanks.
Thank you, mate.
Thank you. See you soon.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Ricardo. Yeah.
Okay.